Hey guys, Poketon King here, back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Fyendal Spring Tunic. Obviously we've had a reprint now with bright lights, the prices are crashing, even the Rainbow Foil one has. So what does this mean for players and collectors? Is it going to keep crashing? We're going to talk about this today. So to kick things off for starters, as you can see, the format of this video is a little bit different. We've got the face cam now. I managed to get a HD webcam. We've got the mic set up. We've got the full setup. It's starting to look a little bit like I actually put effort into these videos, which is definitely a progression, considering if you look at my earlier videos, my first Flesh and Blood video was an opening of a WTR Unlimited box, and it was me sitting on the floor over a small table with an old phone recording, and now we've got the full setup. So the only thing that I need to do now is editing videos. That's the last thing we'll be doing. But we'll be getting there. Patience for sure. Apologies again, as always, for the lack of content recently. It's just been, yeah, the business has been wild. But I am going to be putting some more time into the content when my hours drop next month. So only 4 to 5 weeks left. And we should be having regular Flesh and Blood weekly videos. So let's start by looking at the Fyendal Spring Tunic. So we're on Cardmarket here, as you can see. We've got the 9 printings. So we've got 9 versions of the Fyendal Spring Tunic now, which is ridiculous. The most printed card in Flesh and Blood history so far. Probably going to be the most printed card ever. So if we start, obviously, we're not going to go through the promo ones because the cold foil and the promo ones aren't affected. It's not going to affect those for sure. But we're going to look at, obviously, we've got Crucible of War First Edition from 280. I don't think that's really been hit that much. But one of the ones that has been hit massively is the Rainbow Foil from WTR. So we've got a listing here for €208. Now, I know in the Discords and the Facebook groups, they can be purchased for around 150 to 160 pounds. And this is in euros, but the currency conversion isn't that dissimilar compared to like the pound to the dollar, for instance. But you can see that this graph, obviously, we'd hit €340, and then we've just had this massive crumble. So we have had a recent sale a couple of days ago, last week, of €200, which doesn't surprise me. Again, I think with the Rainbow 4 one, it's an interesting one because the other ones make absolute complete sense, but the Rainbow 4 makes a little bit less sense for me. Now, we knew that the reprint was going to be foil. We knew it was going to be non-foil. So are people selling the foil version? Is it a mixture of people, they generally need the cash, and they know that, you know, they haven't sold their Rainbow Foil version yet? Because the ones that still had these Rainbow Foil versions, why didn't they sell them before to buy the non-foil crew version or the whiteboarded one, which were £100 to £140 cheaper? I often wonder why they hadn't done that earlier, let's be honest. Why would they sell now when the prices are crashing? But then when you take into consideration that a lot of people generally sell when prices start going down because they panic, which is the worst time to sell, by the way. You know, if everyone else is selling, you're going to saturate the market. And that's what we've had here. Now, there's 55 copies on here. Now, they're not all obviously the same price. A lot of these will be the higher prices that probably won't be dropped. And I mean, I know some of these sellers on here already. Soul's Bazaar, Soul. I know he's not dropping the price of this because he's not interested in selling them. He hasn't listed at €350 to sell. But if we go down here, we've got a couple of UK sellers actually, which is quite surprising because often you don't have that. Single Light Games again, massive seller. They've got the cheapest one on Cardmarket. It'll probably sell, let's be honest. So let's go back to some of the non-foil versions. So if we go Crucible of War Unlimited, which got hit massively. Again, we had that spike in July, €225. That's when Tunic kind of hit that peak. And then it's just dropped considerably to €148 again, Single Light Games. They've listed really cheap here, which makes sense. That's the way to do it, is to undercut. Let's be honest here. But yeah, you see a lot of copies on here. Ravnak, again, I know him from Discord. But yeah, so it's interesting to see. And then we're going to go finally to the whiteboarder one, which isn't... That's been more of an up and down. Like, even then, if you look at July when the prices were hitting high for the other ones, this has just been all over the place. So it's a little bit less hard to track. I've got a copy on here for 170 euros. That was the cheapest at the time before the crash. So the white border hasn't been affected too much because it was already quite cheap anyway. But notice there's only 25 copies on here of this, which is not that many. And then, of course, the bright lights. Now, these are pre-sales. The set doesn't come out now for a couple of days. But 135 euros. Kuba, of course, he's listed there to get that lower price. Quite a lot of the names I see now on here, I know a lot of the sellers on here. Massively trusted guy, Kuba, for sure, in Ireland. We'll be at Worlds with him in November next month, which is really exciting. Flesh and Blood Worlds, my first Flesh and Blood event. I won't be selling. I won't be playing. Sorry, I will be selling. I will be buying. It's kind of just to meet some people and stuff. Hopefully, we have some collaborations. With some other content creators and stuff. It'd be really great to see. It'd be nice to meet a lot of people in person, like Kuba, a lot of the other guys that I have spoken to online for years that haven't had the chance to meet yet. In fact, I haven't actually met really anyone in the Flesh and Blood community. All the other, Pokemon and stuff like that, I've met tons and tons of people over the years, but Flesh and Blood I haven't. So I'm really excited for this. But so with the Tunic, obviously we know that there was a point where it was in like 70% of decks, right? Now that percentage is probably significantly less now that we've had so many sets come out since. That was around about last year. We've had quite a lot now. And there's just so many more variations and options and stuff like that now. But what is interesting to see is, we'll go back to the main page here. So I've talked about this before. For me, the Fyendal Spring Tunic is the base set Charizard of Flesh and Blood. Now, different card games have the icon card, right? So Yu-Gi-Oh, you got the blue eyes from the first set. Charizard, you got the base set Charizard. So they are from the first sets, and they're like the most iconic one from those first sets, and they kind of continued on. Now you've got the Black Lotus from Magic the Gathering, again from Alpha. Now this is from the first Flesh and Blood set. So there's other cards in this set that can be considered cards that are part of the Power 9 as such for Flesh and Blood. That it's a group that's obviously used for Magic the Gathering, but it is often put in for Flesh and Blood as well. And that doesn't consist of cards just from the first set, but the second set as well. You got Arc Knight Skullcap there, you got Command and Conquer, Enlightened Strike, Art of War, Fyendal Spring Tunic. Now, in WTR, what other cards would you feel are iconic, right? So you've got Enlightened Strike, that's iconic, but again, but it's only Majestic. Even the Rainbow Foil version is still Majestic. Now, you've got the Heart of Fyendal. That is arguably the rarest card in the set, right? To get. But is it as iconic as Fyendal Spring Tunic? Now, we've had 9 printings of this. So if we go back, we've had the Gold Cold Foil, which is the pinnacle of Flesh and Blood for me. Like, an absolutely stunning card. We've got the Rainbow Foil version, which I have in a BGS 8.5. You would have seen that on the channel just because I won't shut up about it. It is just my favorite card in my collection for any card game. And that, that includes Pokemon that I've been collecting for over 20 years. It's such a beautiful card. It is a piece of artwork in itself. And then, of course, you've got the Cold Foil version from WTR. There's actually two copies here on Cardmarket, which is interesting, 6.2k. But no other cards had as many preprints, right? So with the reprints as well, not only does it bring these cards to be a bit more affordable to players, but something that Josh mentioned on the stream as well is, if they didn't think this card was that relevant, they wouldn't have printed it as much. Now, this could be reprinted again. I wouldn't put them past, in a couple of years, to reprint a non-foil version, possibly the same way, a non-foil version in a deck or something. I don't think the actual card itself, the card actually in itself is actually a little bit different now, if you compare this version to the Crucible of War. I haven't actually looked at that, but the text is slightly different. I don't know what it actually looks like in person. I've seen some photos and stuff, but I'd like to hold it in person, so I will be picking up a copy myself if I don't pull it, for sure. I think the history pack one, I want to get one of each language, just because I want to have one of every Tunic. The only ones that I'm probably not going to get are these two, let's be honest. Maybe the alpha one at some point, that'll be the grail. I'm never probably going to get this unless I sell all my organs. But weirder things have happened. So this is the most iconic card for me in Flesh and Blood. So having this many reprints is not a bad thing, because at the end of the day, even though I'm a collector and I'm a seller and I buy, sell, and I collect and invest, this is a player's game at the end of the day. Like most of this card game is players. And they're the ones that ultimately kept a lot of it going. Now, we've had videos in this before about who's more important. Every single part of this game is as important as the next, whether it's players, collectors, or investors. Because everyone has a part to play, right? But they're making these cards for players. So having a reprint regularly every couple of years is never a bad thing, honestly, because clearly the demand for Tunics is still very much there. Otherwise, it would be, a 50 quid card. I don't see it ever being a 50 quid card. Hold me to that. It might happen one day. I just don't see it happening, honestly. I think even if at some point in the next 5 years, it's not a very playable card anymore because of power creep and, there's other cards that are better, right? It's still an extremely iconic card. And I think by that point, in 5 years, the collector part of this game would have grown massively. And I think there'll be that many collectors in the game and investors that the Tunics would have been picked up and put into collections. Now, base set Charizard, if you go through the sets after that, same as LOB Blue Eyes, they weren't extremely playable after that, let's be honest. So it doesn't matter about how good a card is in terms of playability. Why Schwartz, for instance, the Mai Sakurajima, I'm sorry if I butchered that. For any Y Schwartz fans, Mike might be watching this video and laughing because I know we have conversations about mispronouncing certain characters. But the Mai card, right, that wasn't in the first Y Schwartz set at all. But that is the icon for Y Schwartz, I think. And that is that's an outlier to most sets where the first card in the set, there's one card in the set that everyone gets exposed to. Everyone in Flesh and Blood knows what the Fyendal Spring Tunic looks like. Everyone in Flesh and Blood has probably either owned or played against a copy of Fyendal Spring Tunic. So that's why I wouldn't be too worried in terms of collectors-wise. If you're holding copies, I wouldn't be looking to sell right now, honestly. If anything, I'd be looking to buy more as the prices start to come down. The Bright Lights version, I do think will drop below 100 euros, honestly. Again, once it's been opened, I don't know the pull rates of it. So that'll be another factor to consider here, right? Because nobody's opening up WTR or Crew anymore, really. I opened up a little bit still, but it's not in a mass to flood the market of Tunics, because there's 37 copies of the Unlimited Crew one, right? There's 55 of WTR. There's 14 version of Crew First Edition. And then there's 25 of the White Border one. And then 72 of the different languages. I mean, I'm interested to see what the cheapest ones here. So you've got French, Spanish, yeah. German are going to be the most expensive because I think French, yeah. German, I think, are deemed the most expensive. Italian are the hardest to pull, I think, because it was the smallest print run. So there's an Italian copy here, 150 euros. So maybe if that's there next week, I'll pick it up. Some of these don't ship to the UK, so it'll be interesting. But again, it's a short little video that I just wanted to talk about the Tunic because I've had people that are getting into Flesh and Blood still. They leave comments on some videos or they message me on Instagram or Discord and they're like, oh, I recently picked up a Fyendal Spring Tunic because I wanted to keep it in my collection, but now it's been reprinted. Should I sell it? Should I sell it to buy a new copy of the Bright Lights version? Honestly, I think if you just want a Tunic, I would always try to get the older versions, right? They were less printed. Now, again, as I said, we don't know the print run for the pull rates for this Fyendal Spring Tunic and Bright Lights. What we will see is when the set initially drops, the first 3 months, we'll just see how many copies are out there between Cardmarket, TCG Player, and the groups and whatnot. We'll just see the vast, but Crew Unlimited, there's only 37 copies on here. We know that Crucible of War was the least printed set between both sets, Unlimited and First Edition together. But Unlimited Crew is the least printed set of the Unlimited sets from the first 3. So for me, if I wanted a non-foil version, I'd be going for the crew. But I would always say get the WTR one. Again, I know it's a little bit, you can get it cheaper in the groups. This might even drop a little bit more, honestly. The set isn't even out yet. Again, a lot of this is speculation. People panic sell, and people panic buy. So before sets come out, I know I've been selling a lot of mech stuff and a lot of ranger stuff. So a lot of people have been speccing on Dash, on Azalea, on Riptide and stuff like that. So they're buying these cards, right? Most of my sales right now are mech and ranger stuff. That's predominant 90% of my sales in Flesh and Blood. Then it'll be outliers where I'll be sending some random legendaries and stuff from different classes that people are just like, right, I'm going to decide to pick it up now. So there is that. And there's also the other one I wanted to quickly go on is the Teklo Foundry Heart. Are we going to be able to get this? Because again, that got a reprint, which I was quite surprised on. So we'll go to the rainbow foil version. We'll show foil all versions. So yeah, you got the arc first. So you got unlimited one, which is around 100. It had a little bit of a drop. It didn't drop as much. It dropped there, but where it's mech, it didn't drop as much because it's going to be used. So it had a little bit one, 10% maybe, 20%, not even that. But again, you're going to be able to get a cheaper copy, Bright Lights. There's already copies here for $68.99. So I'd always say get the rainbow foil version every single time. There's 40 copies here. That's not much for Arc, honestly. We've said this before. We've gone through the legendaries. We've gone through the legendaries before, and we've said just how little there is supply sometimes. I mean, the US market is a little bit different, but I kind of just focus here on the European and UK market here. There's not that many copies. So yeah, so hopefully you've enjoyed this video going through the Tunic and stuff, and my opinions anyway. I'm still going to be buying Tunics because it's my favorite card personally. I have a little bit of a bias to it, but I think there's a reason why it's such an iconic card, and I think, people just need to take a little bit of a step back when you see such volatility in cards. Josh did make a good point where a lot of these cards, the legendaries from the first couple of sets, they might not be seen as collector's items the way that people thought they were going to be. And I think that is a good point. Now, when you look at the first 3 sets, you've got, 18 to 20 legendaries? Around about that. That's quite a lot of legendaries. Now, people aren't going to have multiple copies. The average person won't have multiple copies of all of them. The average person won't even have 1 copy of all of them. So it's going to be about how many collectors are in the game. And you'll notice the strength of the game in terms of players versus collectors, because right now singles are selling really well for me. I know that a lot of players are in the game. They're excited. They're looking forward to playing mech again, or whether it's ranger or, the other classes that will be coming out over this next couple of sets. But yeah, it shows the strength of the game, honestly. The game is growing massively. If you are going to be at Worlds, drop me a message. It'll be great to meet up, say hi and stuff. I will be taking some stuff to trade and stuff like that, and I will be interested in buying some stuff. Maybe we can arrange collections as well. I'll be interested in picking up collections as well. But thank you all for watching. Please comment and subscribe as always, and have a great day.